Hey, it's Joe, and welcome back to Humanfluence. I've been making a lot of content around religious themes lately, especially focusing on Jesus. And honestly, with the state of the world right now, the division, the chaos, I get it. People are looking for some sort of savior, and many are expecting Jesus to literally descend on a cloud to set everything right. But here's the thing: if we really look at the layers of these stories, the metaphors, allegories, and symbolism, what we find often paints a different picture than the one people might expect. Now, if we look in the mirror and face ourselves, we'll see that the problem is in most of us. And this video is all about ego death, a topic that's often misunderstood and sometimes even taken in completely the wrong direction. I've made plenty of videos exploring the ego, how it can serve us, how it can control us if we let it, and how it can trick us into thinking it's the voice of reason, or even our true self. But today we're going deeper. We're going to look at the stark differences between genuine ego death and the kind that comes from a shallow or misguided place. But first, what is ego death really? Ego death isn't about destroying the ego, as it sounds. Instead, it's about recognizing that our true essence is beyond our self image, our stories, or the masks we wear. It's the awareness that the ego, the part of us that clings to labels, identity, and personal story, is just one aspect of who we are, not the entirety of our being. And when people experience genuine ego death, they realize that they are connected to something larger, something beyond the roles they play or the achievements they cling to. It's a moment of deep humility where the ego takes a step back to reveal the larger self, the true self. But here's where people often get it wrong. Some interpret ego death as a reason to detach from everything and everyone, or as a path to some kind of spiritual elitism. They might say, I've conquered my ego, or use spiritual language to disguise self centered motives. That's a red flag, because genuine ego death isn't about lifting oneself above others. It's about breaking down the barriers that keep us separated. It is not about saying, I'm enlightened, I've reached some higher place, but rather realizing that we're all walking this path together. And there is no pedestal. So, true ego death versus false ego death. Real ego death is a surrender, a release. It's not something we achieve or gain, but something we let go of. When people are seeking ego death for the wrong reasons, like to feel special, superior, or even as a badge of honor, it becomes another form of ego reinforcement. Think of it this way. If someone is proclaiming their enlightenment or using ego death as a way to feel unique or above others, they're actually feeding the ego rather than dissolving it. True ego death involves vulnerability. It's about confronting the darker aspects of ourselves, the parts we'd rather ignore, and being willing to let go of our grip on control. This is why real ego death often doesn't feel good in the traditional sense. It can be painful, challenging, yet humbling. It strips away the stories we tell ourselves and forces us to face raw, unfiltered reality, our fears, insecurities, and illusions. Now, I will take a break from the religious stuff, but I do want to tie this back to Jesus, the symbolism of Jesus and ego death. If we look at the symbolic layers of his story, we see a path of surrender, sacrifice, and ultimate humility. Jesus' journey wasn't about dominating others or proving his worth, but about embodying love and compassion in the face of hatred and misunderstanding. He didn't go around boasting about his enlightenment or creating a hierarchy. Instead, he lived a life of service, breaking down barriers rather than building them. The story of Jesus on the cross is a profound symbol of ego death. It's the surrender of the self, the willingness to let go even to the point of death. This isn't a path for the faint-hearted. It's not a comfortable, feel-good journey, but one that requires letting go of every layer of egoic attachment. It's a reminder that true ego death doesn't come from a place of superiority, but from humility, compassion, and an openness to something larger than oneself. So, signs of false ego death. How can we spot the difference? Here are some telltale signs of false ego death. First, spiritual superiority. If someone is using ego death as a way to feel superior, enlightened, or above others, it's likely not genuine. True ego death doesn't place anyone above anyone else. It shows that you and everyone else is interconnected. Second, avoiding accountability. Sometimes people use ego death as an excuse to escape responsibility. True ego death doesn't mean detaching from life's challenges. It means facing them with a humility and without the baggage of self-importance. And third, desire for recognition. If someone feels the need to announce or showcase their ego death experience, it's a sign the ego is still very much in control. Real ego death is quiet, personal, and doesn't require external validation. True ego death is about being fully present and fully human, not escaping from life or striving to be more spiritual than others. It's realizing that there's no need to perform or prove anything. It is not about perfection or being better, but about facing and accepting oneself with honesty and compassion. Jesus didn't teach ego death as a way to escape humanity, but as a path to embrace it fully, to be more compassionate, more understanding, and to realize that ultimately, we're all in this together. His path wasn't about renouncing the world, but transforming how we relate to it, letting go of the self-centered mind and stepping into something deeper. So as we explore ego death, let's remember, it's not a one-time event or a status to achieve. It's a continuous practice of humility, presence, and service. The genuine path of ego death isn't glamorous, nor is it meant to elevate anyone above another. It's about recognizing the illusions we create and returning to a state of connection. In the end, the ego can be our ally or our master. It's up to us to choose. True ego death is the process of making peace with that part of ourselves, letting it serve us rather than control us. So dive deep into what it means to let go of ego, genuinely and humbly, and see what truths lie on the other side. Humanfluence out.